My name is Ryan Hickok. I am the main trainer here at Cablecast Community Media, and thank you for joining us in this webinar for talking about closed caption sidecar files. So this is a new feature that we added in Cablecast 7.1. We have for the longest time been able to support closed captioning in the actual video stream itself, and having that pass through for broadcasts as well as video on demand and live streaming with that. But now with 7.1, we added the addition of supporting those sidecar files. So there are a couple different sidecar file variants that we support, and we'll talk about just those two there. We'll show how to get them onto the server. There's a couple different ways that we can do that. Pretty straightforward, but we'll show you those. We'll also show you how they will appear in Cablecast to make sure that, yes, the closed caption files are supported, they're valid, they will work. And then we'll also show you kind of what a closed caption show will actually look like when it is presented, so that you can actually see that. We'll show that as a video on demand file, so you can kind of see that. So kind of starting off with our sidecar variants that we have here. So we do support two different variants for sidecar files. We support MCC, which is Mac Caption, and that is on CEA line 708, as well as we support SCC Scenarist, which is C608 on there. So those are the two sidecar file variants that we do support. A lot of the different captioning products that are out there that do create sidecar files, they will either create them in one of those two variants with you, whether it's like Enco and Caption or Telstream's captioning service or other different captioning products out there. There's a wide variety of them. We won't get into detail on those today. But those are the two different variants. So if you do have those, they'll either be a .mcc or a .scc file extension on those that we'll be using. So how does it work? How do we get there into the server so that they will be recognized? So it's pretty straightforward. Basically, all of your video content lives in that E drive. To make your sidecar file to work, it also needs to be in that E drive. So what we will do is we will just hop over here to our server that we got here. And I've got a file right here, some yesterday's Democracy Now! I've got that I've already created a show record for that we can see there. And we've also dropped it right in there into the server, the SCC sidecar closed caption file that we have. Now, for them to be recognized, it has to be named exactly the same as the file itself of the video file so that they can marry up. Cablecast won't recognize it if it's something else. You have to do that. So when you do have that file extension or that show record extension at the beginning, the prefix, so this is show record 126-1, we will have to put that 126-1 at the beginning of that so that it stays married up in there. So getting that file onto the server, we can do it in a couple different ways. You can either file transfer it via your network, you can put it on a USB drive, plug it in there. But what's really cool, what I want to show you, is with our new functionality of file upload in Cablecast in 7.1 here, or in 7. If we go to our digital files over here on the left-hand side, and we choose our upload, the different types of file formats that we can upload is not just video files. We can also upload our sidecar files through here as well, which is really nice and convenient for you. So if you have those, we can get there in there. So I do have a file on my desktop here, so I'm going to choose my file. We're going to go there. There's my video file. I can upload that. We're going to choose our server. We can rename it. So I'm going to put it on my Vial Lite and start my upload there. And then also I can upload my closed caption file right there, my SCC. I'm going to leave it the name. Nice feature with this is we can rename that. So let's say you put the digital file onto the server. You've already created a show record. You get your SCC file or your closed caption sidecar file or your MCC file. Afterwards, we can rename that, put that prefix already at the beginning of it, and it will already be recognized and marry itself up to there. So we can upload that, and we'll have our files already uploading, and they'll go through that process. One thing to note is if you do put a file or a sidecar file on the server after the fact, after you've already uploaded and created a show record and you've already named it, you will need to re-index that file in digital file management. So for example, if I go to my last here, yesterday's closed cap your Democracy Now! That I uploaded, if I did not put that in there right off the bat, I would have to go and click on my re-index for it to reprocess to see that that digital file or is married up to that sidecar file as well in there. So getting it in there, a lot of different ways, just make sure that it's named the same. So now that we have their file in there, how is it going to appear in Cablecast? So we've kind of already seen that. So here's yesterday's sidecar file that I put in there, or with our Democracy Now! From yesterday. I created my show record, but in digital file management here, we have some new information right here at the bottom. It's going to ask us if there's closed captioning present. And if they are, it's going to say, yes, it is present. But then it's also going to tell us if it's compatible. So if it does follow those different variants that we support, or if it's within the video stream or whatever it may be itself. So it is going to let us know if there's a problem with it. It'll give us a warning on that in there. Where we can look at some of these other files that don't have closed captioning on there, it's just going to leave that blank for us. But the ones that we do have closed captioning, it's going to fill in that information for us in there. So you're going to be able to see it and to get it in there. This is also very handy, like where I said, you need to re-index your show. It won't show up any of that information. If you re-index it, then it'll show that information saying that closed captioning is present in there. Once that's finished, it's really straightforward. Create your show record, like what I did here. We can go into my actual show record, create it just like what we normally would do. We can create our video on demand files, make it CG exempt if we wanted to, whatever it may be in any of our show records, treating it just like a regular show record. Being we enabled it as a video on demand content, those closed captionings are going to carry over seamlessly for you. It's going to make those added into our video on demand. Same thing if we're playing it live, that's going to pass through, show it out on your cable channel, as well as on your live stream in there. So it's really easy and very, very simple. The biggest thing, just making sure that you have your names set correctly so that they're marrying up. Now, if we wanted to look at how this actually will appear in like a video on demand product, we can then go to our video on demand. Here is my Democracy Now! And if I play, I'm now going to have, I'm going to mute that for us. I now have a closed caption button right here telling us that closed caption is currently off. If I click on my English, you're going to see that now we are presenting closed captioning with our programming in there. The nice thing with like a program like Democracy Now! Is they do present and have their available files for you to download. They also do provide sidecar files as well, an SCC file for that. So I just downloaded these right from their website and was able to put these onto our system, and I'm able to have that going in there. Whether you have your own product, your own encode server or encode device or whatever it may be, Telestream or whatever it is in there, you'll be able to present those or get those files, or if you have a third-party online service or whatever it may be, you can use that in there. It's just a really nice, fast way to be able to get your content out there and get it captioned for your providers in there. So with that being said, I think we can kind of dive into some questions that some people have.
Question number one is, can sidecar files be paired with MPEG-2 or only H.264? And the answer is, that's what's really nice about sidecar files, is they can be paired with anything. The video format and container of the video file has no impact on supported sidecar files. So it could be H.264, MPEG-4, it could be a ProRes file. And this is actually like really common if you have say a Blackmagic Hyperdeck, which is one of those disk ISO recorders. Those record MCC, so Mac caption files, and that's how they store closed caption data. So if you have a closed caption feed being fed into a Hyperdeck, you can encode the video and the captions. You'll get a ProRes video file. I think you can switch it to DNxHD, but you'll also get a Sidecar MCC file. And what's nice about this is now you can transcode the video to some lower house format like H.264 to save space. You don't have to worry about doing anything with the closed captionings, which can be a problem because a lot of closed caption get lost during transcoding. So if you like open up the ProRes file in something like Adobe Premiere Compressor, you have to do a lot of extra work just to keep the caption files. But with the Sidecar file, you can just copy that on separately. So hopefully that answers that question. The second question you had is about encoding. So we don't currently encode Sidecar files. It's something that's kind of in the back of our to-do list, but we haven't had really any requests for it yet. So when the VIO or Flex server on the latest version encodes a file, that still gets stored in either the MPEG-2 user data or the H.264 video essence. There are tools that would allow you to like extract those files if you need to like, you know, send the Sidecar files up to a service or something, but we don't really see that happening that much. So, so far Sidecar files are only supported for playback, but if you have a workflow where you want to encode Sidecar files on your video server, let us know because we'd be interested in those workflows. So I just got the question, what are Sidecar files? Why are they called Sidecar? They're typically called Sidecar files based on old Sidecar motorcycles. So if the motorcycle is your video file, the Sidecar is the file. And what's nice is that they're separate. And so they're called Sidecar files because they can be kind of moved around. So especially it's much more important for kind of like bigger productions generally, because if you have, say, a video that's going to be transcribed to a bunch of different languages, you know, you'd send the English Sidecar to your English-speaking nations and then, you know, other languages. And so instead of having to have 15 variants of the video, you have one variant of the video with different Sidecar variants for captions. What happens if you add a Sidecar file to a file that was recorded with embedded captions? That is an awesome question. So Sidecar wins. So in Cablecast software, the first thing we do when we go to play file is we check for the Sidecar. If that exists, we will ignore any embedded captions. So what's nice about the Sidecar file is you have a file with embedded captions, and then, you know, you realize something's wrong, you can, if you still have access to the transcriber or something, or someone wants to make a change, they can then re-export it. You can just then replace it with a Sidecar file. So Justin Cowgill asked, will the 708 files from the MCC automatically spit out 608? So that's a pretty technical thing, but the answer is it should if it's a valid 708 file. So 708 is digital closed captions. But in practice, almost no one uses the additional features of digital closed captions. Especially in North America, we're pretty much just using it for regular ASCII English characters. And part of the 708 spec reserves space for 608 data. And so typically what you'll see in a 708 file is the 608, and then with 708, just the same stuff repeated. And so, yes, if you have a valid 708 file, it should contain 608 data because that's required by the specification. Our SCC files used in the ENCO system, if you have the ENCO transcriber, if you do offline captions with it or even live captions, it will spit out an SCC file. So that's actually what we've done with most of our webinars in our demo server is we put the file on an ENCO, or we give it to ENCO and they do it for us. And then we get the Sidecar SCC file and we put that in Cablecast, and then that will be used on playout and for video on demand. So yes, ENCO outputs SCC files. So do the video files need to have a valid timecode track for the Sidecar file to work correctly? So if you've never opened up like an SCC or an MCC file, they are just timestamps with the encoded caption data. We do not do any matching up of the Sidecar format and the video file format. We assume that both start at 0 and then proceed with the video. So if If you're trying to do something tricky where you only transcribe part of the video file, that would be problematic, as then your captions and your video would not line up. So what we really expect to have happen is that the sidecar file is the transcription of the video file that you're putting it alongside of. So does Cablecast support multi-language captions? So if your SCC or MCC file has multiple caption services embedded in it, then those should work. The reason why we chose both of these sidecar files is because the way they work is they are encoded caption data. So they are the entire caption packet, which needs to be output on your video server as part of this one sidecar file. We do not support taking multiple sidecar files and combining them together. So if you had like 2 different sidecar files, you would need your caption provider to combine those into a single file for you. So Justin Calgill is asking, is there an ability to adjust the timing of a sidecar to match it up with audio? And there currently is not. So not in our software. If you do offline captions, then typically their alignment will be much better. If you are doing what are called online or real-time captions, there's typically some delay, and you would need to like bring that file into some sort of caption authoring software to then kind of reset it. If that's something that you want to do, reach out to support at Cablecast TV to do some sort of feature request. It's in theory possible, but not something we do right now. So Trent's asking, can you trim a show in the record with sidecars? So yes, if you set a trim in your reels, the sidecar caption file would also be seeked into just like the video file. One thing that's not supported right now, and if you have a strong use case for this, please reach out to us, but it's not very common. If you're doing lots of multi-reel shows where you have multiple reels, we do not combine all the sidecar files from multiple reels into a single file. In that case, it'd be better to condense everything down to one reel and get a single sidecar file for the reel. They'll play out okay, but we just can't combine them all when doing video on demand. So there's a question about what the encoder will do if there are already captions in the signal, and you then feed that into an encode caption. I don't know if they have any ability to detect captions that are already present in the stream and then turn off their encoder. I would guess they probably do not. So that's something that you would probably need to manually control or kind of change your workflow a bit. Trent's asking, not sure if you mentioned, but CC on OTT. So the sidecar files get transcoded with your video on demand. So they will be transcoded into a web VTT file that's made present with your video on demand. That will definitely work in Apple TV. We are about to submit a release to Roku to fix something that I find really annoying about their platform. For the caption should be available on the Roku devices in the near future. We just need to submit an update. So yes, within the next week or two, the closed captions on, if you have captions, sidecar files, video on demand transcoding, they should be available on all the OTT platforms as well. Craig is asking, what's the timeline for Cablecast Force Matrix to include some encoding caption control, start test captions? I can't speak to an exact timeline. It's pretty close to on the top of our list for development right now. We're still just, kind of like everyone else, trying to get our schedules back to normal after dealing with the pandemic. So I can't give an exact timeline, but I would imagine sometime this fall. So I've trimmed a file. Will the sidecar file match up with the new trim start time? It depends on how you're trimming it. If you're trimming it in the user interface of Cablecast by adding a cue to the reel, then it should, because we'll seek into both files. If you're just adjusting the file, like if you're bringing it into a nonlinear editor or something and chopping the heads and tails, then no, the captions will not line up anymore unless you do the same thing to the sidecar file. So Craig is asking about the multiple reels versus sidecar files. So yes, so the sidecar file has to be named exactly the same as the multiple reels for your video file. So if you have 128-1 .mp4 and 128-2.mp4, then you would have 128-1 SCC and 128-2 SCC. So as long as the sidecar file names match exactly, except for the extension as the video file names, they'll be linked up. And I think we're through the questions.
Yes, we are. Thank you, everyone. These have been really good questions, as well as useful information for us to try to make a better product for you.